want to welcome you to our program today. Our very special guest is Lorrenne Mulherin. And so Lorrenne, so good to have you on our program today, and I hope I pronounced your name right. I knew some Mulherins when I was growing up as a kid, but it's pronounced, or it's spelled Mulherin, right?
Mulherin, yes.
Mulherin is how you pronounce it. It sounds like a good old Irish name.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah, so is that kind of where the name Mulherin comes in, is from Mulherin?
Yes, I think it's pronounced any way people want to pronounce it. We don't care. We'll answer it all.
But Mulherin.
Mulherin.
Mulherin. Okay. Well,
to get the
hopefully
Irish.
by the time we're done here today, I'll get it.
Sure.
I'll get it down packed. Okay. Yeah. Well, Lorraine, so good to have you. Lorraine, so good to have you here today. And Lorraine is from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and she's a person who, well, she's written a book here. It's entitled A Grandmother's Book of Blessings, and this would be a hardcover version of it. But I've read through a lot of this book, and I'll tell you what, it's really, she's had quite a blessed life, and not so much, meaning that she's been blessed by God in so many ways, but the beauty of it is that she has been such a blessing to other people. And as I read through all these stories, I mean, you've documented so much of experiences that you've had, God moments, people who have been part of your life, experiences that you have had. And it's just such a testimony, to be able to read these. I know my faith was strengthened as I would read these stories, and just, how God would work and how God would work in your life. And so you wrote this book, this collection of God experiences, so to speak, or testimonies. But really, you started by doing a lot of more speaking engagements.
Actually, God started it by just blessing me, and then I started sharing the blessings in giving some faith-sharing talks. And in sharing the blessings, people told me, a lady came up to me after the second talk I ever gave and said I should write a book of blessings someday. And I swear that was probably God talking to me, because I don't remember another thing she ever said to me, but I couldn't forget that.
That you should write these so that it's something that will be kept.
Yes. And I think it's smart for everybody to write something down. I really have encouraged a lot of people to write some of their favorite memories for their family, because my oldest son didn't know the stories when he started to read them, and told me to keep writing and to put them in leather. They're generational, he said. So that's how the book came about.
Yeah, so it's a way of kind of documenting, your life that then can be shared, hopefully for generations to come. So that kind of is how it started, was that it was going to be a work, for the family, so that it can be passed down or be read by, well, like you say, your son, who knows you very well, but yet even in knowing you very well, I never knew that, Mother.
Yes, that's true. And it was a way, I could tell, it was a way to share how blessed a life I've had. And I think blessings are not meant just for the person that receives them. I think we are to share our blessings one way or another. So that's what it has turned out to be. I'm thrilled to death that other people are reading it now and have been blessed by it.
Yeah, and that's one of the blessings, is to, as we live our lives and to see how God is working in the lives of others, and to say, what a powerful testimony. And so as I read through your book here, a couple of things come to my mind. One is that you've opened your life to God, saying, God, I mean, you never said it specifically, but it kind of, as I get the gist of the whole thing, is that you, basically, I'm living a life of faith. It's not so much, God, here's what I want you to do for me in this day, but rather, God, here's my life, use it. And it's interesting how God has used your life. And then the other thing that I kind of noticed is that it's like you're just open to whoever God sends down your path, like a crossroads. It's like, well, God, here I am today, and as I get to this crossroads, here's somebody who's in my path, and how God uses you, and how, well, I'll just use as an example, of many in this book, but I just remember the experience of of you going to the Dairy Queen with your
Yes.
husband that
Yes.
day, and
Yes.
I thought that was such a touching story. As I read
It
it, it's
was.
just like, wow, that is powerful. Of how, I mean, obviously that was God working in that moment. And why don't you share, this is just one out of many inspirational stories, but share the day when you and your husband went to the Dairy Queen.
Yes. My husband loved to go to the Dairy Queen, but it was a hot night and he'd worked hard, and so had I. And so he asked me, let's go to the Dairy Queen. And for some reason, we went to one farther away than we could have. There's one closer. But when we got there, a young boy and his mother went to the counter and ordered something after we had ordered. And my husband liked Buster Bar parfaits. I don't know if you know what those are. But at any rate, and I got one too. And I was sitting there just starting to eat it. And that little boy turned around and looked at me and said to his mother, can I have one of those? And she looked around and said, no, honey, they cost too much. Well, for some reason, right at that point, I couldn't eat my Buster Bar parfait without getting him one. So I went up and said, do you care if I buy him one? And she said, no, he's had a hard, that'd be wonderful, he's had a hard day. And so I bought him one, and then I sat down again, but I noticed while I was sitting there, I could see him, his eyes were so sad. And I felt so bad about it. I didn't know why they were so sad, but I just was drawn to him. And so for some strange reason, I'd never done it before, but I felt called to buy him another one for later on. So when I got through eating mine, I went over to him and said, if it's all right with your mom, I want you to have another one when you want it. And so I gave him money to buy another one, and she thanked me wholeheartedly and said, I told you earlier he had a hard day, a bad day. It was his daddy that drowned in the river this morning. He had been using drugs, and he had slipped off an embankment and fallen into the Cedar River. And that poor little kid had just found out that his dad had died, and so I gave him the money, and then later, I didn't know when the funeral was or who her dad was, but I wanted to kind of keep tab on him to see how he would do. And I saw in the paper where it was that he had passed away in the funeral home. So I called the Murdochs and asked them if they knew the name of the little boy. Well, it ended up that the little boy had just come in the evening before and had given Mrs. Murdoch a bouquet of red roses for his father's funeral. And he said, a nice lady just gave me the money so I could buy my dad flowers. And he had taken that money and bought his dad flowers. And we wanted to help him later on. And there was a reason, and I can't remember quite why it was, but it didn't work out that we could. I think there was a family member. They questioned us why we would do this. Mm-hmm. Not the mother, somebody else in the family questioned why we would open our heart or our homes up to help somebody. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get to follow through. We'd like to have him come out and stay with us or visit us or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess I was supposed to buy him flowers for his dad.
For that moment and that
time.
time.
Moment. It was that moment, that time.
As much as you opened up your life, hoping that maybe you could be part of this young boy's life as he got older. I guess that just wasn't meant to be. But, but in this moment, God's light shined through you, and how wonderful that is. Yeah, so you are a person of strong faith. I mean, that's evident. And how did that all come about?
You know, truthfully, I was raised in a home where faith was important, but I believe I was given a gift early on in life to see God's goodness in ordinary things. I mean, I could get dramatically excited over a yard full of dandelions when they bloomed. I mean, or a rainbow, or we lived on a farm, and you just see miracles all the time. You plant a little seeds, and you have a big field of corn. You know, everything was miraculous to me, and I was grateful for it. I mean, I loved life, and I think that kind of an attitude if you've been blessed, I think blessings are not just to keep to hoard, we're to share. And I think I was given the ability then to share blessings easy, maybe, because I could see them easy. I felt real blessed as I had wonderful parents. We worked hard living on a farm, but still, everything, I saw a lot of blessings out there in it.
Blessed in the ordinary.
Ordinary.
Yeah, isn't that something? Yeah, and so as your faith matured and developed, then you could see God working in all these different ways, and that you're seeing. Well, as I look in your book, you can see, that God working that your faith, and that your faith in your life in so many detailed ways in. As you live your life in relationship to family members and friends and various experiences that you've had. And here again, like you say, a blessed life, but what I find inspirational is, well, not only those special times, but you've also found the blessings of God, or God being with you, and what God teaches us and helps us with even in the most difficult times in life as well.
He's always there. He's always with us. I don't mind saying it, I'm 89, and I expect him to be active in my life today, same as I have for years and years. He's here, and he is active in our lives. I think we probably miss out on a lot of things he's done for us, and it helps to see them. It helps to be grateful, and I think gratitude is a real blessing, just to be able to be grateful for the small things. One of the smaller things that happened, probably didn't seem small, maybe to somebody who's never done it, but my mom and dad gave a home to a little boy, 4-year-old boy, when my twin sister and I were 14. That had to have been one of the biggest blessings I've ever had in my life. My own family too, my own sons as they were born. Each one, I could see Christ's hand in them. They didn't come by accident.
Yeah. You mentioned, just how important your parents have been in your life, and in helping you mold your faith and things in life. And so they took in a 4-year-old boy when you were 14. Now you have a twin sister.
Yes.
And so at age 14, because I believe you and your twin sister, weren't you the youngest?
We were the youngest in the family.
Yeah, and then now they took in a 4-year-old boy, and what an impact that had on your life.
Yes.
And so your parents were pretty special to say, what prompted them to do this? I mean, how did this come about?
Strangely enough, I didn't know this girl, but before we were born, my oldest sister was 17, and I had 3 brothers in between. The youngest brother was 10 when we were born. So there was a lot of space between us. And when my older sister was young, they took in another girl and gave a home to another girl. I never really remembered that girl. She was out of the house. Her sister came and got her when she was 16 years old. My parents raised her until she was 16. Mother died at birth. And I don't know how they got her. I got to be honest and tell you, I do not remember. But they were used to doing this. And so when we found out about this little 4-year-old boy that was going to our country church, and he'd run over to us, and we found out he needed to move from where he was. He was living with a family. His mother, they were divorced, his mother and father, and he was staying with a cousin of ours. So we got to know him through just seeing him at church. And last time my dad took him back, we'd come and get him and take him home from church with us. They'd let us, and then Dad would take him back home. He didn't want to get out of the car. He cried. He didn't want to get out of the car and go in. So my dad said, we will take him, because they had to find another place for him. His school was starting. He was going to be 5. So they took him and gave him a home, and all of a sudden, my twin and I had a little brother who we couldn't have loved anymore.
Isn't that something?
Couldn't have loved him anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And so obviously a richness of God's love within your parents, and that certainly then was something that you all then experienced and embraced.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so a strong faith and trusting in the Lord day by day, and you know, just started having these faith talks, and then people started saying, well, you need to, you know, start recording some of these things in a book, and your son was also encouraging you, saying, well, Mother, I'd like to know more about these stories and things, you know, not only for my own sake, but these are stories that I'd like to pass on to, you know, to my kids and hopefully their kids and the generations, because I think a lot of times in life you know how much we pass off, you know, as being
Coincidence,
you know,
even sometimes.
Yeah, you know that. Well, you know, the things that we just didn't know about a person, and how that will help mold the faith of generations to come. To say, well, yeah, God is real, and God does work in our lives in real ways, and God isn't always just working through the big supernatural things, those big miracles that we're looking for, but rather in the ordinary, and to be able to see, you know, God's blessings in the ordinary things of life. You plant seeds and you watch them blossom or come forth. You watch the dandelions blossom in the fields. And yeah, so we mentioned about the, and so you have your faith talks, and how, like, I mean, do you have like a schedule, or does it just happen to say, Lorraine, we would like you to come and speak, or how does this work?
You know, it wasn't coincidental. Honestly, it was God evidently wanted me to do it, but they were not. It was not necessarily an orderly way. There were a organization, a faith organization that would hold retreats on the weekends, and sometimes I would be asked to speak at those in different areas. I've been asked to speak at some places. Various churches, not all just the same Christian church that I belong to, but I've gone to those churches too and spoke, and within the last few years, I spoke to the retired school teachers of Cedar Rapids, and also to retired farm homemakers of National Convention. I just had a delightful time at a care facility, not really a care, it was retirement facility, I'd call it. And I enjoyed that immensely, because another different kind of a talk you'd give, but I was always sharing the blessings I've had in life, and how, or in ordinary life and every day, I still get up every morning believing I have a purpose for the day, and I think everybody should. It makes me feel grateful. At the end of the day, I can see some purpose. It doesn't have to be extravagant. But
and God makes that purpose happen.
Yes, He does. It does, because I leave it up to Him. I ask Him to plan my day.
It sounds like, as He does, He uses you.
I believe He does. I told
obvious.
my family that I've had 2 new knees, and that He gave them to me to use.
Okay.
And so I'm using them.
You wear out those 2 new knees, right?
No, I'm not going to wear them out probably, but I'm using them.
In other words, that's God's intention, though.
Yes, He says you got them, you can use them.
Well, blessed is the one who brings good news, right?
Oh,
blessed
that's
are the
true.
feet of the ones who bring good news. And so I think that's what God has planned for you, Lorraine. And so so this is the book. And so now, you know, people are thinking, well, it would be nice to get a copy of this. And so, I don't know, maybe copies aren't so easy to come by, but how would people get a copy of this book if they really wanted to read it?
Well, I didn't know that I would be advertising. And so I have my address and a telephone number. I mean, I'm listed in the Cedar Rapids telephone directory. I still have a home line too.
Okay.
But I'm just happy to share it, truthfully. If I sell them when I do give talks, because I've been asked to. But I also let people have, if they call me and want one real bad, I've been known to give them away. I'm honest about that. I don't mind. If I think it will help somebody to recognize blessings in everyday life, it's worth a gift sometimes, you know. And so I'm happy to I'm grateful and blessed to know that other people can be blessed by reading my book, because I had no idea when I wrote it that it was going to do that. I wanted my family to be blessed by it, or just see how good the Lord is. That's really the whole point of it. And how you don't have to have big, huge things to write down. You can write down the ordinary things that happened that he was involved in too.
Well, and that's a lot of what you write about. You're writing about your family members, friends, people that you've known, experiences that you've had in life, and how God has broken into your life and has done amazing things and has done amazing things through you. And I think we all find that to be very interesting. We like to read books that help us to, ponder and think. And a lot of these stories, it's like, well, how is this going to end up? And it's like, wow, is that ever powerful? I mean, it's to the point where it brings tears to your eyes in some of these stories. And so that's where also, like you're saying, to encourage maybe other people to say that, God does work in our lives and God is working in the ordinary. And what are your experiences that maybe you can begin to start jotting down and write as a, not just as a blessing to your family, but to others that may find it to be very interesting?
I would hope and pray that it could do that. Now that I've gotten it written, I actually enjoyed writing it. I wrote with tears and I wrote with laughter when I'd be writing them. One thing I want to mention though is that we had other kids live with us, and that they were needy, terribly needy, and we were blessed so tremendously by having them. And it wasn't because we belonged to an organization where we had our name out there. It was just, honestly, God had that plan for our lives. I'm convinced of it. It would be through a phone call or somebody knowing that we did open our home up at times for young boys and young families then. And we had 26 in all. I have an extended family beyond my own family that I will have all my life. And still, the lady brought me that today is one of my extended family members. And so look at the blessings we have. I mean, I'm so grateful to have them still in my life. And I know that how I feel about them, I'm sure they feel the same way about us.
Yeah, well, I can sense that the impact that you've had on the lives of people, and how blessed people are to be able to have had a chance to get to know you in life and to be able to experience life, and what a difference that has made in your life. And so how grateful we are when we have people who are willing to reach out to the lives of others, and how it's kind of like that ripple effect in life. How your life now has affected the lives of so many others in such a great way.
My husband was wonderful at it. Many of these young boys that came were abused or neglected, and my husband may have been the first man that ever treated them with love. And our farm was very important to the families, and I believe that's why God brought them there. Those two were very important to it, my husband and the farm. They needed both of those a lot, in their life at that time. So, and we got to thinking after about the fourth one that came, that God was actually, it was Jesus walking in the door. What you do to the least of my brethren, you do unto me. And we could see Jesus was involved here with us again. He was bringing him.
And when you think about you and your husband and how wonderful the two of you are as far as being loving people who are compassionate and caring, but yet you have a farm. I know a farm is always an interesting place for young people, and you learn so many lessons on a farm, and there's just so much to do and explore. And so your husband was a farmer, but he was also a milk hauler. But then you also had this dog kennel where you raised skipperkees, right?
And we boarded pets for people. That was my big business.
Yes. In here there's some pictures of it. And
oh, it was great. Those were my furry friends. My
you
dogs.
had furry friends, right?
I had furry friends.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing them every day.
Yeah, and so a lot of those experiences you mention about in the book, as far as these boys coming to, to be with you, and also your experiences with the furry friends. And I remember, the one where this lady had this dream of wanting to become a nun. Remember that one?
Dream of becoming a nun. That
Yeah.
wasn't Betty.
Right toward the end of her life,
Oh,
where she lived her life,
Yes,
and
yes.
blessing, but then kind of her last dream, and you kind of caught you off guard a little bit of, well, what would be this last dream that you would want to have fulfilled? And she said, well, I want to become a nun.
oh.
Yeah.
She was an elderly lady. Then I was visiting her in a care facility. And she said, at the last thing, there's one thing she hadn't gotten to do yet. She wanted to be a nun. And I said, Valeria, her name was Valeria. And I said, Valeria, if that's a desire of your heart, God honors the desires of our hearts. We'll just ask you to honor that. And if you want to be a nun, I kind of wanted to be a nun too. You could be, we'll tell him our names. Valeria, Sister Valeria, and I'm going to be Sister Lorrenne. And so we both became nuns that day.
Okay.
In God's sight. Anyway, she was happy as a lark when I left the room.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
was.
Yeah.
God bless her.
Yeah. Well, Lorrenne, you've been certainly a special blessing to us this day, and I tell you, just a delightful lady, and she has done so much with the life that God has given to her. And that's because she's opened up her life to God, and God has used her life as a blessing that has touched the lives of so many other people, and that she finds so much of the blessing in the ordinary. But here again, I tell you, if you like to have a book where you can just read and reminisce and think about, and sometimes it can remind you of other people that you know, or even some experiences that you've had in your life. And like Lorrenne is saying, is that maybe it encourages us to write down and jot a few thoughts and memories of our life as well. And so, well, anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, and what a blessing you
Thank
have
you,
been.
Pastor.
Yeah.
It's been a joy.
And I want to thank all of you for joining us this day as well.